So today I want to talk with you today about warming up your cold calls and how you can do that. And of course I'm going to show you kind of at the end how ProspectNow can fit in with a good cold calling campaign and how you can use ProspectNow to warm those up. But here at the start I want to give you some tips and tricks that I've come across in my sales career in terms of warming up cold calls. Speaking of my background, my name's Robert again, and I was a real estate agent for many years, and so I've sat in your shoes in terms of doing lead generation and prospecting for new business and making phone calls and trying to get in front of the right people at the right time to talk to them about my services. So I've got a little bit of background there, and been with ProspectNow for a while and using this tool in terms of helping other folks get down the line there with their lead generation. So let's talk a little bit about the sales call right off the top of the bat here. First of all, I want to give you all a sense of relief and permission, if you will, that calling prospects is okay. There's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and calling people and to see if they would be interested in and could use your services. And despite the fact that sales folks sometimes get a bad rap, sales is an honorable profession. The reality is that if all the sales people in this country went away, this economy would come to a grinding halt. And I don't really believe the kind of the general myth out there that people hate all sales folks. And in fact, I think that what they don't like are pushy salespeople and annoying salespeople and salespeople trying to sell them things they don't need or want. But in general, people appreciate a good salesperson that is appearing at the right time, has the right product that they want and need, and can communicate with them in terms that meets their needs and not just feels like it's a sales pitch to meet the salesperson's needs. So sales is honorable. You should feel good about what you're doing and not have any problem picking up that phone and giving folks a call. One of my sales mentors and somebody that I've read a lot of in the past is Jeffrey Gitomer. And if you haven't picked up anything by Gitomer, you should definitely do that. He's hilarious, it's funny, and right on target. And one of his favorite sayings, which I think in fact he's trademarked, is people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. And that's really true, isn't it? I feel the same way. I don't like to get the hard sell. I don't like people pushing things on me. But I love when I've got the money to buy something and I've found just the right thing. I enjoy buying it. There's a big rush, and there's a reason. This is very scientific, actually. The fact that people love to buy, there's science behind it. They've done studies to show that the endorphins get flowing, and when people close a deal, that there's actual chemicals going on in their brain that makes them feel good. And this is why people are the idea of a shopaholic is actually true. People just get this rush when they buy things and they shop. So people don't like to be sold, but they do love to buy. So again, if you're at the right place at the right time calling the right people, that's going to be a positive for everyone. So the key is then to stop making blind cold calls to unqualified prospects. And that's going to get you further into the door when you pick up the phone and make a call. So let's talk about blind cold calling. Blind calling is, in my opinion, so 1990s. That it's something that just has a lot of problems with it, and people don't like it if they get annoying calls at the wrong time and it's for the wrong product and that sort of thing. So, and when I'm talking about blind cold calling, I'm talking about picking up the phone, having just a random list of people that are anonymous to you that you're just dialing, and you've got no background on them, and sometimes you don't even have a person's name. You just have maybe a property address, maybe you've got the name of an LLC, and it's just totally random and blind. You also typically in a blind cold calling scenario with just a list, you've got limited info on the owner of the business if you have any information at all. I know people that in this business that are calling property owners literally just have a list of names and addresses, and a lot of times the names aren't even people's names. They're LLC names or something like that. They're having to research phone numbers, and they don't know anything about the business. Then there's a problem with gatekeepers, and we all know what this is about, right? This is where you pick up the phone, you don't have a direct number for the person you want to talk to. Instead, you've got a business number or something like that, and you end up with getting a receptionist or a secretary or somebody that's not the right person, and now you've got to do kind of a double sell. You got to sell yourself to the gatekeeper just to get by. And again, the reason this is a problem is if you don't have a person's name, you don't have information about their business, you don't have a real reason for calling, it's going to be tough to get by that gatekeeper. The other problem with blind cold calling in this is that it really does focus on the idea of just a sales pitch rather than engaging somebody at the point of their issue or problem that you're trying to solve. And so, one clue where we're going with this is that I want to see more engagement in the call and less just selling and pitching. And frankly, blind calling, random to anonymous people, is annoying. It annoys the prospect. It is not enjoyable for them, and it's a quick way to get them to just hang up on you. But hey, guess what? Cold calling works, doesn't it? I don't know how many of you have been to seminars on this or read about it, but the fact of the matter is, even though this is a very old form of selling, it still works today, and it's why people keep picking up the phone and calling, because it's a numbers game. The fact of the matter is, if you call enough people, you make enough of those calls, you will get business. In fact, just to throw a number out there, if you were to make 300 total cold calls a day, you'd probably get the kind of results that you want. You'd probably have a banner year, your best year ever, if you literally every business working day made 300 cold calls. Well, the problem with that, obviously, is it's not practical. It's not efficient. I mean, you might, somebody on a very good day might be able to hammer out 300 calls, but that's not something that's sustainable that you're going to be able to do day in and day out and get to it. Get through those numbers every day. So the trick is, or the thing I'd like to do, is what I call load the dice. And what I mean by that is that make fewer calls, but make them to the right people. So instead of making 300 calls, make 40 calls to a highly targeted list. If you made 300 calls and got, I don't know, 5 appointments out of those 300 calls, what if you could make 40 calls and get 4 appointments? Maybe you drop off 1 because you didn't make the other 260 calls. But if your 40 calls were highly targeted to the kind of people that you're looking for in your niche market, then that would be a more efficient way to do business, right? And that starts to warm up the call, as I call it, and you'll see what I mean in a few minutes. If you could do this, make 40 calls instead of 300, that's more time for you to spend on high dollar producing activities. So when you're in the sales business, there's a lot of peripheral activities that you have to do that support your sales business. You've got paperwork you have to do, you've got office work that you have to do, you've got training that you have to do, there's research and stuff like that. But all of those things that I just mentioned, those at the end of the day by themselves or in and of themselves do not produce a commission check for you, right? There are a few activities that are directly linked to producing a commission check, and a couple of those at the very top of the list are getting face-to-face or voice-to-voice on the phone with a decision maker and making an appointment and making having a conversation about the transaction with a decision maker. Now that is what you should be spending the majority of your time on, is time face-to-face or voice-to-voice with a decision maker. And so if you can make fewer calls in a day, that's going to give you more time to spend on those high dollar producing activities. And hey, here's a bonus, right? More time for your personal life, which is really what we're all working for anyway, right? We want to have a good year and make a lot of money, but ultimately we want to make a lot of money so that we can enjoy our life and our personal life and have the time and the money to support the kind of life that we want. So those are, kind of where we want to go with this. So we want to warm up those phone calls. So what does that mean? What do I mean by warming up the cold call? So ultimately, we're still talking about making what some people would call a cold call. So meaning this is somebody that you're going to talk to that maybe has never heard from you before, has never heard of you, and so in that sense, it is still a coldish call. It's not a true warm call to somebody, a prospect that you've already spoken with before or met somewhere. But what I'd like to do is help you warm up those calls. So what do? Well, for one thing, it really starts, a warmer call starts in your own head. And that's with your mindset. That has to do with you deciding that you're making these calls. You're calling on these prospects because you want to serve them rather than sell them. You have a product, and certainly you want to sell it, but you want to sell it to people who need it, who want it, who are in a place to buy, and where it can meet a need of theirs. You want to solve their problem, not yours. Okay, and when I say that mindset starts in your head, that's really true, because if you don't really believe that's what you're doing, they'll be able to tell. There's the old idea that animals can sense your fear. Well, it's the same on the phone. It's the same when you're selling. If you are in it for yourself and not trying to solve their problem, no matter what words you use, they'll be able to sense that. So you really have to have in your own head this serving rather than selling mindset, and that just goes along with the idea of win-win. When I was in real estate myself, the brokerage that I was with had one of their mottos was win-win or there's no deal. And the idea there is, if it's not a win for the client of mine, then I shouldn't do the deal. And that's the way you need to think, is that even if they are, looks like it's going to be, you could close the deal if you twisted arms and pushed harder. If it's not a win for them, it's not a deal you probably should do. So think win-win. And then understand the prospect's mindset. Understand where they're coming from. What's their background? What's their problem? What's their need? Look at it as that they don't want to be sold, but they do want to solve their problems. So here's a way that is probably not going to get you past the gatekeeper or past the person you're talking to. If you just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, my name's Mike with ABC Realty. Do you have a few minutes?" That just sounds like a sales call, right? And right away you're going to put them on their heels, and they're going to just be ready for a sales pitch and wondering how fast they can get off the phone and what's the easiest way to hang up on you. But if you pick up the phone and instead say something like this: "Hey, Tom, my name's Mike. Maybe you can help me out for a moment." Now you've put them into a position of being a service provider, right? I mean, it's a little bit of a backdoor way, but you use this phrase, "Maybe you can help me out for a moment," and then you go into something you're looking for. So let's say you just have a new listing in an area, and you want to call all of the property owners around that area and see if they might be interested in buying another property, expanding their portfolio. So you could start with that right off the bat and put them kind of make it obvious that you're making a sales call, or you start off like this: "Hey, Tom, maybe you can help me out for a moment. Do you happen to know anybody that might be interested in buying a property around this area? I've got a new listing on the market." And start off a little softer, a little more engaging, a little more of, "Hey, can you help me out?" And that's going to warm things up a bit for you. And then have a conversation, not a presentation. So don't be leading them down an obvious sales path. Right from the start, you want your words and your dialogue and your script to be very conversational and not just a canned presentation that's very obvious. So again, that just puts people off when you're on those calls. So the whole point of this, obviously, is to warm things up so that your clients or your prospects feel like you're there to help them with their issue or their problem or their desires. Then target your market. Now, I've mentioned earlier that a lot of people will just get a list of properties and start calling or start researching and calling if they probably don't have the phone numbers. But make your target market very specific. Don't waste your time calling everyone. Instead, you want to really focus. Now, what does that focus look like? It might be geographically. If you just really focus on a specific downtown area of a couple of streets, maybe that's your target. But it might be other things. It might be property owners who have loans in a certain range. It might be certain building sizes. It might be types of industries that you're really going to focus on. It might be like the example I just gave, where you've got a listing on a certain street and you want to call specific owners right around that property. And the point is, in this way, you're sort of qualifying your market. Now, it's not in terms of qualifying in terms of do they have the money to buy and et cetera, but you are qualifying them in the sense that you're trying to get at people who are more likely to be in the market for your services. By getting a target that meets what you're looking for in terms of prospects, you are in a sense qualifying your target, your market. And then know something about their business. Before you pick up that phone to call somebody, you should know something about them. For one, you should have a name of a real person that you're calling, and you should know some background on them and their business so that you can talk intelligently about what their potential desires and needs are. So get a person's name, a real name, not just an LLC or a company name. You don't want to pick up that phone and say, hey, can I talk to the manager of, XYZ LLC? That just sounds like you don't know what you're talking about. And then have a reason to call. So, the reason can be, hey, I have a listing. Do you know anybody that might be interested? But don't just call up and say, hey, I want to talk to you about your building. But put something together in terms of a reason to pick up that phone and call, and find a personal connection. And that's by doing some research. You can go out on Google or LinkedIn. You can get some information about people now. Now, this is not a very difficult thing to do anymore these days. You usually can find somebody or something about them through the internet these days. So you want to do that and take the time to find something out about, and particularly if it's a prospect that has a lot of properties or is a high dollar value or something, you really want to give yourself the best shot of getting in the door and having a real conversation with that person. And so the bottom line here is, how can we find the actual decision maker for owners and tenants who want to do business with us? How can we find these people that we're targeting, looking for a targeted market, finding something about them, knowing who I'm calling, getting a person's name and number? What can we do to do that? And of course, where I'm going with this today is I want to talk to you about ProspectNow and how we can help with this. Now, everything I just told you, go back here one more time, all of this that I told you about warming up those calls, you can do all of this without ProspectNow. These are tips that you can take with you even if you don't sign up for our business. But I want to show you and encourage you that if you are in the business of calling property owners, how ProspectNow can really shorten the research cycle here for you in terms of finding the right people and getting them on the phone. So, what does prospecting look like in the traditional way? So normally what you do is you're looking for property addresses. You've got a list from a title company, or maybe you pull a list from the MLS. Then you look up the LLC company's name. Maybe you have to go to the Secretary of State's website to look up an LLC and hopefully get an owner or a partner's name. And this is all research. Like I said, you can do this without ProspectNow. Then maybe you get a phone number by going to another website like Info USA or something. Usually you have to subscribe to get any decent quantity of numbers out of them, so you pay a fee for that, and then you get phone numbers. You have to check them against a do not call list. Sometimes you can pull out emails from other lists if you subscribe to them. You might, as I mentioned, get a list of data from your MLS, like expired data. You might get loan data. You can look on the county records for things like notices of defaults and recordings like that. You might want to mix in the industry codes if you're looking for specific industries. And you get the idea here then that we just have a lot of separate databases out there and data sources all over the internet. Some are accessible for low cost or no cost. Others are going to cost you some money to get access to, but none of them typically are connected to each other. And so you're going to have to build all this together. And that'd be fine if you just had a few numbers to call. You might be able to do that research in a day or two to get 3 or 4 numbers. But if you've got to do this process over and over, and this is sort of the steps I just walked you through, like getting an address, looking at the Secretary of State's website, searching up the person's phone number, that process over and over, if you want to build a decent database of business so that you can kind of have a database that's going to be producing for you throughout the year, you're going to have to do this a number of times. Even if you did it just 5 phone numbers a day, this would be about 1,200 times a year that you would go through this process. And so that's pretty time-consuming, not very efficient. So, I want to show you what ProspectNow has done for you. Is we've taken all of the property data in the United States, and actually this slide is saying 10 million property data records. We actually just recently rolled in all of the residential properties in the United States, so we're actually up to 130 million records of property data in the U.S. now that we've added in the residential homes. And so, and that's bumped up our owner data to something like 100 million owners. And we have all this data. We've pulled it from multiple sources that we've gone out and licensed, and then we crunch it, we spin it, we wash, rinse, repeat, and get it down into a single database source for you. And then that's what we make available to our clients. And the good news is not only is it available through, obviously through the internet, through your laptop or desktop, it's available on your smartphone, on your iPad or tablets, and you can export it into Excel. And I'm going to show you a demo of that here in a minute, but first I want to mention the kind of searches that you can do. So it's not just a list, a database, a list of addresses and names and phone numbers. It's actually a very sophisticated search engine, so that, I was mentioning that if you will qualify your target market by really focusing in on a niche, then you'll be able to make those calls more specific and more targeted, and that's what the tool will allow you to do. You can really get into things like finding who owns multiple assets in the area, who are out-of-state owners, give me companies that have been growing in the last year, give me owners whose loans are coming due and they're likely to be coming due this year. And so by focusing on these high-value searches, you can have a higher chance of getting to the right people that you want to do business with. So, the easier picture now, instead of all those databases, is you got the single source of database that can lead you to more closed business. I threw in this slide here about Ken Hoff because Ken is one of our prospects, or not one of our prospects, sorry, one of our clients who used this to find his prospects and his clients, and in fact ended up closing, using ProspectNow, ended up closing last year in 2013 a $275 million deal that he sourced with ProspectNow. And that was, we have another webinar out there where Ken was a guest on the webinar, and he talks about how he found that deal using ProspectNow. He shares the exact script he used when he made the phone call, and in fact it was a voicemail, and he shares the exact voicemail that actually resulted in a return call. I mean, how many of us expect to get a return call when we leave a cold call voicemail? Well, Ken crafted a very specific message that he left on voicemail that resulted in a return call that then resulted in this deal. So that's worth a listen. If you have interest in that, go out to our YouTube channel and you can pick up and listen to Ken's story. So let me get into the demo now. I'm going to show you what this looks like so that you can kind of see what we are doing in ProspectNow and how it works. So let me just get things set up here. Okay, so all right, so when you first get into ProspectNow, you're going to get this dashboard, and we've got a quick search bar. And I do trainings on in-depth on the tool on every Tuesday morning. So if any of you are interested in kind of more in-depth on the tool, you can join us for a training, or you can talk to one of our sales folks. But for now, I'm going to just show you kind of a few searches that will kind of highlight how the product works. So I gave you the example earlier about, let's say I have a listing on a street and I want to call other building owners up and down that street. So let's take, for instance, Lincoln Avenue in San Jose, California, where we are, and see what, let's say I have a listing on Lincoln Avenue and I want to call the owners around it. So I put in Lincoln Avenue in the quick search, and it's going to come back with other properties up and down Lincoln Avenue. You can see on my map here that I've got properties listed up and down Lincoln Avenue. and then I have a list of those properties now in the search results list down here at the bottom of the page. So let's take one of these, like this Paha Investments, for example. We'll click on them. Now when I click on one of the properties in my list, it comes up here to the right of the map. I've got now detailed pages about the first tab is property details, so information about like the assessed value of the property, when it was last purchased, that sort of thing. And then it's on the owner tab where things get really interesting and a lot more exciting. So we've got now Paha Investments, and we see that they're headquartered in San Francisco. Now a lot of sources would stop here and just tell me the name and address of the owner, and that's what you get from the county records. And so here again, like I've said before, I wouldn't have a person's name to call. I would have an address, and typically just going with data from the county, I wouldn't have a phone number. But you can see here ProspectNow has loaded this with a phone number for us. So we can call up ProspectNow, and in fact it's pulled up a couple of different phone numbers for Paha Investments. So you've got your choices here. If you don't get the right person on the phone with one, you got another number to call. But more interestingly, and perhaps more importantly, is that ProspectNow has gone out and was able to find the partner's name for you and given us the name Alex Buyer as a partner for this Paha Investments. So now I have a name of somebody that I can actually call. Now, that's warmed up my call right there. Now I've got a real name of somebody to call about this property on Lincoln Avenue. But let's go a little bit further. Scrolling down, we see that ProspectNow has also pulled up a parent company called Buyer California. And I feel pretty comfortable that this is the right parent company since Alex Buyer is a partner in Paha Investments. Buyer California is probably his company. And scrolling down some more, I see we've got Joel Feldman is the president and COO of Buyer California. So here we've got a couple of names, we've got phone numbers, and how about if I wanted some background before I picked up the phone to call Joel about his portfolio of real estate? Well, you see this little LinkedIn icon here. Now anywhere in ProspectNow that we have a LinkedIn icon, this is going to be a direct link to your LinkedIn account to see if we can find a profile. Now remember, not everybody has a LinkedIn profile, and Joel may or may not have a profile, but if he does, we have a chance of finding it here. So I click on the LinkedIn icon, and you can see it comes up here and says, hey, I found 2 results on LinkedIn in your area. First of all, we've got Joel Feldman, who's at Otis Spunkmeyer. I think they make cookies or something, right? So that's not the guy I want. I click on Next, and here we go. Joel Feldman, President COO at Buyer California. That's the guy I'm interested in. I want to see if I can find out some more information about him before I pick up the phone to call. So I click on it, and boom, it goes into my LinkedIn, and here is an entire portfolio, it looks like, for Joe Feldman. I mean, he's really filled out his LinkedIn profile. Everything from where he was born in Brooklyn, New York, to where he graduated college, to when he moved out to California, and, you know, what he's doing in business, right? So this is great. Now you can pick up the phone. You can ask for Joel Feldman. You've got some background. You can make a personal connection. And that call just got much, much warmer than a straight, flat, cold call, right? Let me show you an advanced search. So that was just a quick search where we just put in Lincoln Avenue. But I want to show you some of the capabilities of really digging into those targeted market, targeting your market more in the advanced search. So here's the advanced search screen, and I'm just going to reset this so it's going to clear out my previous search. And you can see here we've got where you can search on information about where the property is located, city, state, address. You can do a radius search around a certain address. Over here you've got information about the owner. So let's say you wanted to find information out about owners of property in, we can take Sunnyvale for example. Let's say we wanted out-of-state owners. And this would be a good search to do out of state, and the way we would do out of state is for the owner state we would select all the states and then uncheck the box for the state that the property is in. So in my case I'm going to say I want all the owners that are outside of California, so I uncheck California. And let's say I want you know, commercial property, but I'm interested specifically in building sizes, and this is under the building size or the building characteristics. I've chosen commercial property, and then I'm going to put building size. Let's say I want maybe 5,000 to 10,000 square feet buildings. Okay, so I'm going to hit the search on that, and now this is going to come back in Sunnyvale. So I've got 8 properties in Sunnyvale. It's not a huge city, of where the owners of that commercial property, 5,000 and 10,000 square feet, are out of town or out of state. And why would this be a good set of prospects to call on? Well, these people are out of state. They may not be that connected with the market here. They may not know that prices have risen 20% in the last 18 months. They may be tired of managing a property from a distance and be ready to sell. So these are people that I would call and say, hey, I'm a local expert, want to ask you about your property. Have you considered selling it? Is the time right? So that's a great targeted search to do. Let me pull up one more. Let's see. We'll do, I know I wanted to do a search for lenders, because I know some of you are in the banking and lending business and you might want to call on people to do refinances. So you'll look here, we've got financial data section, and you can search on anything from sales date or when a property was sold, or properties that were not sold in a certain date range. We've got sale price range that you can put in here. And if you're a lender, what you would do is come down here to the section, and let's say you want loan amount. So let's say you wanted loans that are more than $1 million. Let's see if I got my zeros right. I think so. I want loans that are more than $1 million, and I'm thinking of 7-year terms on these loans. So I'm looking for loans that were originated, say, January of 2007 to January of 2008. Okay, that's about a little less than 7 years ago. Actually, now we're in the middle of the year. Let me modify this. Let's go July 2007 to July of 2008, and then I'm going to click search. Oh, actually, let me make. I'll get too many if I just do the whole county. Let's do San Jose, for example. So I'll click search on this, and here comes our search results. 287 properties that meet that criteria, that I can now start calling on people who may be on 7-year loans that are coming due. So that would be a great search to do for investors, or not investors, sorry, but lenders and bankers. So that's a good overview of the property search. And then real quick, I just want to show you what the capabilities are on the tenant side. Those of you that do tenant rep work, you'll be interested to know that we can search by tenant. So let's say you wanted to contact the Starbucks owners in Atlanta, Georgia. So we can do, let's see, put in Starbucks, put in Georgia, oops, or we could do Hawaii. Let's put in Atlanta, Georgia, and click search, and this is going to come back with all of the Starbucks in Atlanta. Looks like we've got 38 Starbucks in Atlanta, and here you can just start calling down the list if you want to talk to those businesses. And you can do that with any business. We've got an advanced search for tenants as well, where you can put in industry code if you want pizza restaurants. So, for example, you can look up, say, show me all the pizza restaurants in Atlanta, Georgia, and it would do the same thing there. So, let's see, is that coming back? Yeah, there we go. 118 pizza restaurants in Atlanta, Georgia. So now I've got my list of lunch spots for the next half a year or so, right? All right, let me go back and finish this up so we can kind of get you guys out of here. So, ProspectNow was founded by Steve Wayne. He was a commercial real estate broker, and he realized that there's got to be a better way to get to those names and numbers. That research, we talked earlier about how you want to be focusing your time on those high dollar producing activities. You want to actually be spending the bulk of your time in person, voice to voice on the phone with live decision makers, and not spending your time doing a lot of research. And he found that he was spending the bulk of his time just trying to get a phone number, just trying to find the people. And so he decided, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. I'm here in Silicon Valley. We're headquartered in Los Altos, which is right here in the heart of Silicon Valley. There's got to be smart minds out here that can put together a tool that can solve this problem, and so we did. The company's been growing pretty rapidly and profitably. One of our early investors is Dennis DeAndre, who's the founder of LoopNet, and so he saw the value in a originally commercial real estate database for properties. Now we've got the residential in there. And we've got over 2,000 customers across the country in multiple firms, multiple disciplines and industries, all using our tool. One thing to kind of end with is kind of a case study. And what we did was a few years back when this thing sort of got rolling and we were getting some traction, we said, you know, what really is the net benefit here? How does ProspectNow really help the typical salesperson? And so what we did was we got one of Steve's old buddies from commercial real estate and said, hey Dave, I've got this tool. I'd like to hire somebody to make some calls for you and see if we can get you some appointments, right, for some business. And Dave said, sure, knock yourself out. You want to do that? Fine. So we got somebody, didn't have a real estate background, gave him the ProspectNow tool and said, hey, here's Dave's criteria. Here's the kind of target market he's looking for. Use ProspectNow to search that up and make some phone calls and see what can happen. And here's kind of the results. What we found is that the efficiency in terms of making phone calls increased quite a bit. So, you know, was able to basically make 150% more calls because we didn't have to do, or he didn't have to do the research. And so, and then on top of that, because it was more efficient and more targeted, he was able to spend less time. So spending 2 hours a day versus 4 hours a day calling, researching, and calling leads. So the net result here was that in this you know, 2-day test, basically made 75 calls a day, was able to get a meeting in 40 calls instead of 56 calls, and generated, and I don't need to jump through all these numbers, but the bottom line is, was able to generate an additional 9 leads, potential leads a week, which led to a potential increase in the number of transactions per year, sorry, and where the got down to, you know, a potential net that you see here in terms of several, you know, more than $200,000 in terms of net on top of you know, what they're doing. So that just gives you an idea. Now, of course, you know, this all depends on how much time you spend and how many numbers you call and whatnot, and what your market is like. But this just gives you an idea of the kind of efficiency that you can realize. So the question at this point usually is, so what does this look like in terms of costs and whatnot? So it's a monthly subscription base is how we do it. It's $89 a month. That'll give you 1 county. Additional counties are $10 a month. If you want to go beyond that, there are substantial discounts for annual or multiple counties, or if you want a whole state or region, which we do have clients that contract for the whole state or even the whole country, then we have discounts for that. So that's how it works. I hope that this has been helpful for you and that you'll see some value in this. And whether you become a client of ours or not, I hope that you've got some tips in terms of how to warm up those cold calls and make a better connection with the leads and the prospects that you're getting in touch with. If you are interested more about ProspectNow, feel free to give us a call or contact us through our website. We do have free trials available, and you can really get in there and drive it yourself and see if it's got the kind of information that is going to be valuable to you. So thanks a lot for joining us today. I really appreciate you being on the webinar, and I wish you all the best and happy prospecting, everyone.